If you have your Unit 3 study guide, it's a great idea to look at it as we go through it together in this video. These are Mr. Regnerus Notes, so feel free to follow along. Now in questions 1 and 2, it tells us an expression and then tells us the value of the variable. So you'll see the same thing is happening in both of these. Now, I don't have a ton of room to work here on this study guide, so I am going to use a separate sheet of paper for some of these problems. On our unit test that's coming up, there will be room for you can work out some things right there on the test paper, but you're always welcome to use some extra paper as well. So as I look at this, I have 5g plus 3 when g equals 1/3. So I'm going to go ahead and substitute 1/3 where I see a g. That means I have 5 times 1/3 plus 3. So I know I can take 5 times 1/3 by just simply taking 5 over 1 times 1/3. And I'm realizing now in the video you can't see that, but there it is. 5 over 1 times 1/3. So I just multiply straight across. That would equal 5 on top, and 1 times 3 is 3 on the bottom. That's 5/3. Okay, so I could now change that into an improper fraction by dividing. I know that 3 goes into 5 one time. 1 times 3 is 3. I subtract and I get 2. So this 2 then becomes my remainder, or part of my remainder, I should say, as my new numerator, and the 3, the divisor, becomes my denominator. So I have 1 and 2/3. Let me go back over here to my paper here. This is going to be 1 and 2/3 plus 3. And so now all I'm doing, I need to work definitely on getting this on the video, but 1 and 2/3 plus 3, that's going to equal 4 and 2/3, because I'm just taking my whole number 3 plus my 1 and then adding on my fractional part. All right, take a look at number 2. Same deal. I'm just now going to replace the x with a 2. So it says 1/4 times x to the 3rd power minus 1. So I'm going to rewrite this 1/4 times 2 to the 3rd power minus 1. So now I know that I'm going to do my exponent first. So 2 to the 3rd power equals 2 times 2 times 2. So this is, work this out. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. So that means this is 4 times 8 minus 1. So now I can think, well, what's 4 times 8? 4 times 8 is going to give me 32. Minus 1, that gives me 31. So my answer for this one is 31. All right, so those are the first two. Again, it's just a matter of substituting and solving. Now number 3, it says which two expressions are equivalent for any value of x. In other words, no matter what x equals here, which two expressions are going to be the same. So I have 3 times 4x plus 5. I know I could use my distributive property and distribute that 3 across. So that means 3 times 4, or actually 3 times 4x, right? And then 3 times 5. It's not going to equal 7x plus 8. Let's try it for this one. I have 3 times 4x plus 5. That's 3 times 4 if I distribute it. Okay, and then I have 3 times 5. Well, that would be 3 times 4 is 12x, plus 3 times 5 is 15. But here it says 15 plus 12x. I need to be aware of my distributive property for this one, but also my commutative property, because I can switch these around anytime I want to because of that plus sign. That's what the commutative property says. So B is certainly correct. Now just to double check, we should probably look at all of them. It says 6 times x plus 6 times 7. That would be 6x, but not 7. So I know that one's not correct. And then I have 6 times x plus 6 times 7. Well, 6 times 7 gives me 42. And then 6 times x gives me x. So there's actually two answers here. It's B and D because I use the distributive property. Now, I will warn you, there's going to be some questions on your test like this, but I think there's only one answer here, and it'll make it very clear on the test that there's one answer. Let's do the same thing or a similar thing here for number 4. It says select all of the expressions that are equivalent to 8k plus 16p. So I need to look at these equations and almost solve all of them, or at least simplify all of them, to figure out if they are the same as 8k plus 16p. So here I can use the distributive property. 2 times 4k, that's going to give me 8k plus 2 times 8p, that'll give me 16p. So check that out. Right off the bat, I've nailed it. I've got A. Let's keep on going. I have 4k plus 4k plus 16p plus 16p. So like we've done so often in class, I'm going to circle my k's and box in my p's. So I have 4 plus 4k, that gives me 8k, plus 16p plus p, that gives me 17p. So close, but not quite. Let's do the same thing. I'll circle my k's, and I'll box in my p's. So I have 2k plus 3k, that gives me 5k, plus 5p plus 2p is 7p. Okay, so not at all close. 5 can be distributed here. So 5 times 3 gives me 15k, plus 5 times 11p is 55p. Not even close. 2 can get distributed here. So 2 times 16 gives me 32k, plus 2 times 32 gives me 64p. Not quite what I'm going for. Let me circle my, I'll box in my p's and circle my k's. And here they're all mixed up, so it's going to be, they're going to try to trick me. Let me combine my k's first. I have 6k plus k, that's 7k, plus k, that's 8k. Okay, now I have 2p plus p, that's 3p, plus 14p, that would be 17p. Is that right? 14? Yep, that would be 17p. See what I did there? I had to double check myself. So that one is not correct. So as it turns out of all these options, only letter A worked for us, and that was 8k plus 16p. Let's take a look at the next one here. It says, what's the area of this shape? Well, here's my shape over here. It's a triangle. So I'm going to write down the area formula for a triangle. That's base times height divided by 2. And once we have that formula written down, now it's just a matter of plugging in our numbers for the variables. So my base is going to be this. It's the 28 centimeters. And then my height is going to be 19 centimeters. And I make sure that divided by 2 gets in there as well. So here I am. I'm stuck with a problem that I don't know. 28 times 19. But luckily, I can always do this work off to the side to make sure that I'm getting the right answers. So 9 times 8, that gives me 72. 9 times 2 is 18. Plus 7, that's going to give me 25. And now I have 1 times 8 and 1 times 2. Now I just need to add them together. So that's 2, and then 5 plus 8, that gives me 13. And then 2 plus 2 plus 1, that gives me 5. So my answer here for the area is 532, but I'm not done yet. No, I need to have a label. And since it's centimeters here, I'm going to say centimeters cubed because it's important to put the label correctly. Down here, now I'm on to the volume of this rectangular prism. So again, we're going to use our formula. The volume for a rectangular prism is length times width times height. So I know all of my dimensions are here. And the neat thing about this is I can mix them around. So maybe I write down the height times width times length, and that's okay. So my length is going to be 3 feet. My width is 1.5 or 1.5 or 1 5/10, and my height is going to be 5. So now I just need to multiply them, and of course I can just do one at a time. Probably makes life a little easier. So if I have 3 times 1.5, if I'm not sure how to do that, I can just work off to the side here. So I have 1.5 times 3. Now when I'm multiplying decimals, I don't worry about the decimal. I'm going to worry about that later. So I just multiply like normal. 3 times 5 gives me 15. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. Now I move that decimal right back one space over. That's 4.5, or 4 5/10 times 5. Now I can worry about that problem. So let me do that. I have 4 5/10 times 5. Again, Worry about the decimal later. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 4 is 20 plus 2 is 22. Now I put that decimal in one space over. That's 22 and 5/10. But it's 22 and 5/10, and my label is important, so I need to put feet. And since it's the rectangular prism and there were 1, 2, 3 dimensions, it's feet cubed. So I put a little 3 up there. Feet cubed is my label. So that's page 1. We're ready to move on to page 2. Now number 7 is one of my favorite questions, but it actually turns out it's maybe one of our trickier questions because we have to know what a term is, what a factor is, what a sum is, and what a coefficient is. So when you look at this, I have 8 times t plus v minus 7x. I'm going to write that at the top of the page here just to show you that I can separate this into two different terms pretty easily by just drawing a little barrier wall wherever I see a plus or a minus sign, and here it's a minus sign. Now I can't do it with this plus sign in the middle because that's grouped together inside the parentheses. So now I'm ready to roll. Look at my terms. I have a term here, and I have a term here. 7x is a term, so I'm going to put a check mark there. 8 is not a term, not on its own. T plus v, not a term, at least on its own. 7 is not a term on its own. So I only have one term. Let me look at my factors. Now I always think of factor, and I think of x factor because I'm multiplying to find my factors. So, is 7x being multiplied by anything in this problem? No. 8, however, is. 8 is being multiplied by t plus v, so 8 is a factor. Just like 8 is being multiplied by t plus v is being multiplied by 8, so t plus v is a factor. And then 7 is being multiplied by x, so 7 is a factor. For a sum, I always think of a plus sign. That's what I'm looking for. And so I'm looking for an addition problem. 7x, nope. 8, nope. T plus v, yes, that's an addition problem. 7 is not. For a coefficient, that's going to be a number only, that is going to be multiplied by a variable or a letter or a variable part. So it can't include a variable. Now I've shared this in class. Anything that is a coefficient is definitely going to be a factor, but everything that's a factor doesn't mean it's a coefficient. So I know that 7x is not a coefficient because it's not a factor. Look at 8. Here it is here. It's in front of this parenthesis part. So that parenthesis part acts as if it were a variable. So 8 actually is a coefficient. T plus v has the variables. It can't be a coefficient. It has to be a number. And then 7 is a coefficient. It's being multiplied by x. Rolling right along, we've got number 8 now. It says create an expression in simplest form that is equivalent to 2 times 6x plus 9 plus x without using parentheses. What I need to do here is the distributive property. So I'm going to take my 2 times my 6x times my 9 times my x. So I have 2 times 6x. Then I have plus 2 times 9. Then I have plus 2 times x. Now I can combine them. So 2 times 6x gives me 12x. And then 2 times 9 gives me 18. And then 2 times x gives me 2x. But now I can simplify because, check it out, I have common variables or like variables, identical variable parts, the x's. So the 12x and the 2x can be combined into 14x plus 18. So that would be my simplified version right there after I've simplified that down. I just use the distributive property here to distribute my 2 across. All right, back to it now with number 9. Number 9 says write and simplify an equation for the area of the rectangle. Be sure to write the formula, show the substitution, then simplify and include a proper label. Wow, so much going on here. So here I have my area of flowers. So I have to be smart enough to know that this side here is 3 1/10 meter. This is k, so I don't know what that is, the variable. This is 6 meters, and then this is unknown as well, but I know it's going to be a rectangle. In fact, it tells me that it's a rectangle. So this is also going to be 3.1 meters. So with that in mind, I can find the area of this one pretty easily by using my formula. So I'll say area equals base times height. Now I'm going to substitute in for this one. We're going to call this Let's see if you can even see this on the video. I don't know if you can. We'll call this box B, and we'll call this box A, just for fun. So this is for box B. So area equals base times height. That's 6 times 3 and 1/10. Now I know that I could, of course, multiply this out. 3 and 1/10 times 6. 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 3 is 18. Then I move my decimal over one space. The area equals 18 and 6/10 meters squared. That would be for this box. Okay, so that's 18.6 meters squared. Now this one, I'm going to be very perplexed here. How do I figure this out? Because I have an unknown. Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm simply going to use my area formula. Area equals base times height, and substitute for the values that I know. So I know the base is going to be k. I know the height is going to be 3 and 1/10. So 3 and 1/10 combined equals 3 and 1/10 k, 3.1 k. And I can even say meters squared there. So now it says I want to write a formula, show the substitution, and simplify. That's what I did. I wrote the formula, showed my substitution, and simplified. But I need the area of the entire rectangle. So that means I need to take 3 and 1/10 k plus 18 and 6/10. Okay, that's going to equal the area in meters squared. All right, so that's just a problem where I have to combine or write out an expression where I can solve it, this one, and then this one I can't solve it. That's just going to be 3.1 k because I can't do any more simplifying than that. Let's move on to number 10. Now number 10 is kind of an interesting one. They give us a shape here. It's shaded in, but then there's a little cutout in the middle. It's kind of like they cut this out here. So it says write a formula in simplest form for the area of the shaded region in terms of x. So I'm worried about the shade only. I don't care about this white space in the middle. The first thing I'm going to do is figure out the area of the big shaded circle, or the shaded rectangle, sorry, this big shape here. So I'm going to do area equals base times height. I always want to write out my formula first. Next, I'll write out area equals base, which is 9, times height, which is 5. So that's 9 times 5. The area of the shaded big portion then is going to be 9 times 5, which is 45. And since we don't know the units, I'm just going to write units squared. Okay, now I can figure out the area of just this part because we want to subtract it from 45. So that would be area equals base times height. You guys getting the hang of this yet? Now my base is going to be 4. And of course the x is going to be my height, so that's going to be 4x. So then if I'm writing out a formula in simplest form, that would be 45 units minus 4x units. Okay, that would be the area of the shaded region. Not too bad, right? That's not too bad. Let's move on with number 11. Now number 11, we're at the bottom of the page. Hopefully you're seeing it okay in the video. It says you and 4 friends go to a football game. You each pay $3 for a drink and X dollars for nachos. Write and simplify an expression for the total the group pays if the nachos cost $5. All right, so let's think about this. It's you and 4 friends. So how many people are there total? If it's you and 4 friends, that would be 5 people total. All right, so don't be fooled by that. It's you and 4 friends. Okay, so you're going to a football game. You're each paying $3 for a drink and X dollars for nachos. That means there's 5 people that are each paying $3 plus you're paying X dollars. Right? So I could use this algebraic expression to set this up. 5 times 3 plus X. You're paying $3 plus X dollars. Your other 4 friends are paying $3 plus X dollars. All right, so that would be my expression I could write out. Then it says that I want to write it out if x equals $5. So I'm going to now substitute. So I have 5 times 3 plus 5. So now this becomes really easy. I could distribute this if I want to, or I could just solve what's in the middle. And I'm just going to do that because I think it's easier when we have just straight numbers here. So 3 plus 5 gives me 8. So now it's 5 times 8. And then 5 times 8, well, that's going to equal 40. So my answer then here is, I want to think about, what is my label, right? So it says, write and simplify an expression for the total the group pays. So we're talking about $40. And I'll write total. All right, on to page number 3 of our study guide. We are doing great so far, I'm sure. Here is number 12 on the study guide. It says, your school rents a bouncy house for a carnival. The company charges $25 to rent the bouncy house plus $30 for each hour of rental. So letter A says, write an expression for the cost of renting the bouncy house for H hours. So let's think about this for a second. We know we have to pay $25 no matter what, even if we have it for like 2 minutes. They're going to charge us that $25. And then for each hour, it's $30 for each hour after that. So I know I'm going to have to pay the $25, right? I'm stuck with that. And then it's just a matter of how much more I pay. So it's $25 plus $30 for each hour. I could write that out as $30 times H, or just 30H. Think about that for a second. If I only have it for 1 hour, I'm getting charged $30 for the hour plus the $25 to rent it. If I have it for 100 hours, I'm paying $30 for 100 hours plus the $25 that it cost me to get it there. All right, so that would be my expression right there. So I've satisfied that one. Letter B says use your expression to find the cost of 3 hours. And don't forget your label. So I'm going to write this out again. And now I'm going to substitute. Instead of my H, I have 3. So H equals 3. Okay. So now I just do order of operations. I'm not going to add here. Instead, I'm going to multiply first, because that's the first thing I do for order of operations. So to give myself more room, I'm just going to kind of continue this over here. So 3 times 30, that's going to give me 90. So I have 25 plus 90. Now I can add those two things together. So 25 plus 90, that's going to give me 115. But I need to have a label here. And of course, we're talking about money. So I'm going to put my dollar sign. It's $115 for 3 hours. Pretty good deal. All right. I don't know if that's a good deal or not. Let's move on now to number 13. Number 13 says to find the sales tax on an item, divide the price of the item by 12. Okay, don't know what that means yet, but let's figure it out. It says write an algebraic expression to find the sales tax on an item that costs D dollars. Okay, so if it costs D dollars to find the sales tax on an item, divide the price by 12. So I'm going to divide the price by 12. That means if the price is D, I'm going to divide D by 12, right? So I'll take D divided by 12. That seems pretty easy, almost too easy, right? And it really should be. And then it says here for part B, find the sales tax on an iPhone that costs $864. And be sure to include a correct label on your answer. Well, that's no problem. So I'll just say D equals $864. So I have D divided by 12. Now I'll substitute 864 divided by 12. Gee, I don't really know the answer to this one, but I have some special powers where I can do math off to the side, and I'm going to use them right now. 864 divided by 12. So 12 doesn't go into 8, but 12 does go into 86. Here's where I have to kind of guess and check, because I don't really know, right? So I have to think about this now. If I say 8 times, I know 8 times 2 is going to be 16. That's going to give me too much. If I say 7, that might work, but let me check it out. So 7 times 12. Let me just test it here. 7 times 2 is 14. 7 times 1 is 7 plus 1 is 8. That's 84. And I'm mighty close, and I'm also off the page. So hopefully you saw that. All right. So 84. So I'm going to say that's 7. That would be 84 then. I can subtract, I get 2. I bring down my 4, and that's 4. 12 goes into 24 2 times. How about that? So my answer here is 72. But what's my label? Think about it. To find the sales tax on an iPhone, sales tax. Tax is going to be in money. So it's going to be $72 that I'm paying in tax for that iPhone. Crazy, crazy stuff. All right, let's move on now to number 14. Number 14 says, what's the area of this shape? And obviously, we have to be smart enough to recognize the shape, and that shape is a trapezoid. All right, so I use my area formula for a trapezoid. So that says that I take base 1 plus base 2, multiply it by h, and then divide by 2. So let's plug in all the things that we know here. So this is my big base, okay, one of my parallel lines that's bigger than the other. So that's going to be, we'll call it base 1, or we sometimes call it the big B. And then my other parallel line is the smaller one. That's going to be base 2. That's going to be 8. That's going to be multiplied by the height, which I see right here is 12. And then I'm going to divide by 2. So since I have parentheses, I do that first. Order of operations, PEMDAS. Right? We want to make sure we're doing parentheses first. So 16 plus 8 gives me 24. That's going to be multiplied by 12 and then divided by 2. The next thing I do based on order of operations is 24 times 12. You know, I don't know that, but watch this. I can do math on the side. It's an amazing skill that I have developed over time here. So 24 times 12. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 2 is 4. Put my 0. That's a 4. That's a 2. 8 plus 0 is 8. 4 plus 4 is 8. That's 2. That's 288. And that would be divided by 2. So now let me divide that by 2. It goes into 2 once. That's 2. That's 0. Bring down my 8. That would be a 4. 4 times 2 is 8. That's 0. Bring down my 8. That's also 4. That's 144. But I can't forget my label on this one. And my label, of course, if I'm talking about area of a trapezoid, is going to be meters squared. So I want to make sure I include meters squared. So guys, that's our look at the study guide here. Now, obviously, the test is going to be maybe a little bit more intensive than our study guide is. But if you ace the study guide, then you're going to do quite well, I would say, on our test coming up very, very soon. So that's our look at the Unit 3 study guide, our Unit 3 review. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you are preparing yourself for your work in Unit 3.